Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the Soul Goals. I'm Dawn.
And Dixie.
Yay! And
Yes.
yet again, we are here. I can
In
touch my
the
friend.
flesh. That's right.
In the flesh.
I love it. Color coordinated. We didn't even plan it.
Right, because we know everybody's watching this on YouTube, right?
Right?
Yes. And if you're not, you're missing out because we're in person.
That's
and
right.
We have some really, really good candor going back and forth.
That's what I think too. All the cool kids are watching on
Thank
YouTube.
you. All the cool. If you want to be cool, watch this on YouTube. You got it. Yeah,
That's right.
totally. All right.
Oh my
Well,
goodness.
for another episode, for another week and another challenge or / opportunity that we like to call it to uncover our soul goals, Dixie and I went down a little more journaling. Now we did journaling a while back,
Mhm.
but this takes it another step, another layer deeper. I like to call this one bubble up. This was something that I learned in my therapy years and years ago, called a bubble journal. And so it goes around the premise of, if this is going to happen, it's cleaning out our thoughts, then this will happen. So you know how we talk to ourselves in those inner thoughts, like
Mhm.
we set ourselves up for the worst case scenario a lot of times. And then when that happens, or it doesn't happen, you know what I mean? Like
Right.
99%. Oh, I have a pillow over in my living room. Squirrel right there, by the way, totally deviating.
What is that? What did you say?
The squirrel. Have you ever heard that? Like
Yes.
I'm on context and then all of a sudden I
Right.
thought about something and I have to say it right away.
I do that all the time.
Okay, good. I'm not
People
alone.
that listen know that too. So
It's good.
I do.
So I have a pillow that says 99% of your problems never happen, never materialize.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So the idea with the bubble journal is getting all of those ideas out of our head that we are creating, these concepts of these things that we're fearful that's going to happen, that we're putting out there in a way that really inhibits us from being the best person that we can be, and really thinking on a broader spectrum and maybe a little bit more positive about what's happening with us in our days and our situations that we're facing.
Oh yeah, for sure. I had never even heard of bubble journaling
Okay.
until you said this is what we're going to do, and
Yeah.
I was like, okay, what is that?
Yeah, yeah.
And then you showed me, and it's really funny how you do. Okay, if I do this, then this could happen.
Mhm.
Well, if this happens, well, then this could happen. Well, if this happens, and then you get to the bottom, and you're like, therefore, okay, the worst thing that could possibly happen is I'll be fine.
I'm okay.
I'm
Yeah.
okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
I loved that.
The goal is to get to that point. It's to clean out all of the nonsense, the stuff that we talk about and tell ourselves that
Mhm.
it's the self-dialogue. It's a self-talk.
Yeah.
And we are our own worst critics. I mean, hands down, all of us are our own worst critics.
Yeah,
Totally.
I completely agree. I am
Totally.
my worst critic.
Mhm.
And some things that I say to myself, I've been working on it. I've been a work in progress for a long time with this, and I'm a ton better than I used to be.
Yeah.
However, the things I would say to myself, I would never say to my daughter or a friend
Right.
or my mom. Or my husband. I would never
Right.
say things like that to them that I allow to say to myself.
Mhm.
So, yeah.
So my question is, why do we do that? What is that? Self-sabotage is a big thing. It's a we don't feel like we deserve, maybe, I don't know, but, or, it's probably a byproduct of our traumas and the different situations that we've gone through that have
Mhm.
not been on the up and up, that we've had to deal with, the hard stuff that we've had to deal with in our
Mhm.
life, which, I mean, you really owe it to yourself to do that work when you can.
I
And
think, yeah. And
get
you
to the
said,
bottom of it.
I think you said something about worth, and I think that's it. I think way down deep, people don't feel like they're worthy of things, and you have to. I mean, I know people. They're like, you are worthy of this. It is okay for good things to happen. I just think, yeah, I don't know why that is that way, but it is.
Yeah.
How you have to convince yourself that you are worthy of something great happening or something.
Yeah. And it's interesting because I love what you said about, like, we would never come on this podcast and say the things that are in our heads about ourselves to our listeners or our viewers. And you wouldn't do that to your daughter. You wouldn't do that to your spouse. You wouldn't do all of those things. I mean, you fight and you get snippy with your family members, but the process that we go through in our head about that self-talk and that negative self-talk and the things that could happen, and setting ourselves up with this negative kind of line of thought, we don't bring out to other people. We don't say, oh, and then this is going to happen to you, and this is going to happen to you. I mean, usually, right?
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yes.
So the idea of cleaning out everything that we have in our system to get to the bottom line of, I'm okay. it's really going to be okay. Is okay. And another, just an interesting another concept, Ben Bergeron, I love following the CrossFit world. It's so good. He talks about when he was preparing his athletes for competition, they would go through all of the worst case scenarios so that they had the thought, and if it happened, they knew exactly what they were going to do to rectify it and to work through it.
Yeah.
So I'm not suggesting that we're getting this out so that we're planning for the worst case scenario, but what we're doing is being prepared by cleaning out the space. If that makes sense.
No, it makes plenty of sense. And how freeing it is to already go, okay, if this is the worst thing that happens, all right. So then you're like free to just kind of do what you need to do.
Yeah.
Because if you're taking the time to say, okay, if I do this, then what can happen? Then it must be pretty important. You,
yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
So, or something you've been thinking about, or you kind of take the fear, you take the power away from the fear of doing the thing, whatever it is, when you do this exercise.
Right. Yeah. You just release some of that pressure. And I think also a big thing that I always talk to clients about, and I've said it numerous times on this podcast, is you have to clean house a little bit to create space for those next opportunities to find you, you know?
No, 100%.
And on a very metaphoric kind of standpoint here, I would call this cleaning out the mechanism and finding some space, even if it's just a millimeter of space.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Even if it's just a thought, even if it's just one little thought pattern that you can go over here. I don't need that. It's, I'm going to move through that, and I'm going to create this openness to then allow that worth to come through. Because I think you hit the nail on the head. I don't think we're feeling worthy of deserving. And nothing is further from the truth.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's why I never understood. Well, I do, understand where people say they're doing something, and then they're like imposter syndrome sets in, and they feel like, oh gosh, if they really knew me, then they wouldn't be listening, or if they really knew what I thought, or knew whatever, or I'm not qualified, or whatever. I think we do that to ourselves all the time.
Yeah.
And it keeps us from doing things that are really meaningful and worthwhile, because it's not true. People, whatever you think that fill in the blank is, if people knew this about me, then whatever. So I'm really not, I shouldn't be doing this podcast, or I shouldn't be coaching these people, or I shouldn't be speaking at this event, or I shouldn't be giving this advice, or whatever. And that's just not the truth, because we all have something to give,
Amen.
Absolutely.
Mic drop right there.
Right.
Yeah. So if I ask you how many times you bubble journaled this week, what do you say?
I did 3.
Okay.
But then I've been thinking about several other things that I might go back and do, but I did 3. And then I thought, you could get as deep as you wanted. You can be as trivial or as deep as you want with this.
Right. Exactly.
It could be something super important that changes the game for you, or it could be just something simple that you've just been putting off.
Right. Exactly.
And so I think I did both.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Do you want to share one of them?
Yeah. My, one of them that I did was about prioritizing my health. And so about not prioritizing my health. So my health journey post-menopause has been very tricky for me. And sometimes I've thought, what is the point? Like, what is the point?
Yeah.
It's just too hard.
Right.
I've done that. Like, this is too hard. But then staying where I am is also not, I don't want to do that either.
Right.
So then I get in this situation where I'm like, oh my gosh, the energy that this is taking, and the thought, and it feels like another part-time job.
Oh, processing is a part-time job. Yeah. Yeah.
Right. It just feels like, and then, so I just did if I don't prioritize my health, then I will continue to decline, because then I allow postmenopause to win, and then I put, if I decline physically, then my mental health will decline as well. If my mental health declines, then I become irritable with my family, and I become, unrealistic.
Oh, wow.
And then I said, if I'm irritable with my family, then I damage relationships. And then if I damage relationships, then I lose the people that I love the most. So I went all the way down. Yeah. And then I said, therefore, the greatest act of service that I can do for my family and for my life and for my relationships is to prioritize this health journey.
Wow.
So that's where I got there. I mean, I skipped a few steps. I mean, I just went.
Yeah, no, but yeah. Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah. I was like, oh my gosh. Okay.
Yeah.
Now it's worth it.
Yeah. You got to the bottom of it and you thought, and you went to that place of, therefore here's where I am. And I want to cover like the selfish versus selfless concept. And maybe we've talked about this before, but that selfish versus selfless. So if you're talking about your priorities, and one thing that really hit me is if I don't do it, I sacrifice this with my family. My relationships are sacrificed. That basically you're just
right.
there.
And you can't just go from, okay, if I don't prioritize my health, then I might lose my family. Well, you don't have any context of all the in-betweens.
Right.
So when I did all I didn't really see it going there, but I was like, okay, so if I'm irritable, then I damage relationships. If I'm just mean all the time.
Yeah.
Because I'm unhappy.
Yeah.
Or I'm unsatisfied or I'm unhealthy, whatever,
Right.
So yes, selfish versus selfless.
Yeah.
What appears to be selfish is not at all.
Is taking care of yourself. Yeah.
Right.
So I've had this conversation with numerous different clients along and across the years about what that means. And we've debated about it numerous times too, because selfish people could look at you're putting yourself first in terms of taking care of yourself as a selfish act. But I'm here to tell you, when you are selfless and you change that word and put that there instead of selfish, you become much more full. And when you're full, you can pour out to the people surrounding you.
Absolutely. And you're happy. And so I think the people who love us want us to be happy.
Yeah.
And they're like, wow, this is really making a difference. You know, my whole family knows that if I am not feeling my best physically, or if I don't feel like I'm doing the things I should do, I'm not as easy.
Yes, same
to get along with.
Same.
Because it is a mental health thing for me too. And I know there's people out there and they're like, I hate to work out. I don't actually.
Right.
I mean, which is funny. I love working out, but sometimes just the act of getting to that workout.
Yeah.
It's like they said, the hardest rep is
walking in the gym. The first step you take. It's the hardest rep you're going to ever do in your workout.
Right. For sure. And so it's just walking out to the garage or getting out there,
Yes.
And so making that barrier to entry a little easier at home, because my gym is at home. You have a gym at home too.
Yeah.
So it's easy to get caught up in home stuff and be like, oh, I don't have time. I don't have time to go down the stairs and take 30 minutes. What? So I do.
Yeah.
And, but if I don't prioritize that, then there's this trickle down effect that happens.
It's priorities and choosing your hard. You know what I'm saying? I saw a reel about that this morning on Instagram. Choosing your hard is really, it's something that's hard for us to do. And it's hard for us to take that step.
Right.
Break that. What did you say about the barrier?
The barrier to entry.
The barrier
to entry easy.
Yeah.
So because my gym is at home, I don't necessarily have a gym bag, but lay my clothes out so I take away like all the decisions, so you don't have decision fatigue immediately, and then you just go, whatever, I'm not doing it today. Oh, I'll just do this. I'll do it later. I'll do it later. And later never comes, and then it's time to you're tired and time to go to bed, and you're just like,
and then you haven't done what you haven't done to do.
Yes, and I'm just so guilty of that because I've got, I mean, there's a lot of people in my house. Well, when you got college students in high school, and I have college, and one just moved back home from college and take care of a mother that lives with us. So there's just a lot of adult energy in our house right now.
Yeah.
And so it's easy to get caught up.
Yeah.
And not do
what
I should do. So
you're being selfish because you're not filling your own cup so that you can then fill the cups of the people around you.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. So,
and I feel like that's probably going to be a debate that will go on for the rest of the world.
Right.
Selfish versus selfless.
Right.
Yeah, totally. Right. I will say too, you talk about the people we love really want to see us happy, and when we're hurting, we tend to project that out to other people. And I learned a long time ago in therapy that when we are hurting, we tend to hurt others.
Yeah.
And that was when I learned that, I was kind of younger, and it was a big aha moment for me, because if I'm walking around in my own goo and angry and kind of curmudgeon-y, if you will, then I'm really hurting all of the relationships around me because I'm hurting the people that really do want me to be happy and that do care about me the most.
Yeah. And when you have that revelation of hurting people, hurt others, when somebody's treating you in a way, you can have grace. There. You can go, something's not right.
Yeah. Yeah. It gives you information about why people would be reacting the way they're reacting and why people would be saying the things that they're saying. And, I had a situation where my younger daughter had to do a big piece of forgiveness around a situation. And it was really interesting to watch her because I was not raised in a household where that's what we do. We talk about forgiving to benefit the forgiver.
Oh, yeah.
And not because you forgive does not mean that it made the situation right.
Right.
But it's only hurting yourself when you're holding on to those aspects and those pieces.
Yeah. I had a friend say that unforgiveness is like you drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. So it doesn't, I didn't make that up. Boy, I wish I did.
Yeah, that's a good one.
It's a good one. And it's true. You forgive for your benefit.
Yeah.
And that's so funny that I wrote forgive on the top of my paper because on the drive over here, I thought I need to do one about if I forgive, then whatever. So that's funny that you mentioned forgiveness.
Because, okay, so let's do it together.
Yeah.
If I forgive, then I feel weak.
Okay. See, I feel the different. I feel if I forgive, I feel like I have more power.
Ooh.
Right?
Ooh, I got more bubble journaling too. I think for me, when I think about that, and that's been a big piece for me from my past, is forgiving the situation and the trauma that has happened and the issues that have come upon me.
Yeah.
So getting to that point where if I forgive, I look weak. It's trying to still hold up some kind of idea that I have to hold it all.
Right.
Right.
And if you forgive, you kind of take the power. So it actually makes you stronger.
Dixie, I love you.
Right.
Thank you.
Because then you're not, it doesn't get to control you anymore. Yeah. You are the calling the shots now.
Yeah.
So
you're writing your story at that point. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Oh,
so,
okay. Yeah. Okay.
There you go. We're strong. We're forgiving. There you go.
We got it. Let's go. Let's do it.
That's right. So did you do one? What was yours?
I did 3 different ones as well.
Nice.
Yeah. And I don't have my journal out here with me. I just wrote down my prompts about what it was that I wrote about. I talked about my younger daughter with a situation she has currently going into college to play her sport and some things that are really outside of our control. And ultimately everything worked out the way it was supposed to and everything's okay. But it was to me, thinking through different pieces of my therapy, I've had numerous counselors tell me, like, you can't hold on to that stuff. And we go back to the forgiveness piece, right? I think that's where the base of a lot of it is forgiving and letting to be able to let go, to get your power back.
Right.
But if I continue to hold on to that experience and that pain that she was in the middle of as her mom watching this and knowing that I couldn't do anything about solving it or fixing it for her.
That's the hard part right there.
Yeah. Yeah. If I can't help her, then this happens. If this happens, then she can't do X, Y, and Z. If she doesn't do X, Y, and Z, then it ultimately had nothing to do with her. It was all about me.
Isn't that funny?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because you might not have, like when you do that, like it just revealed something you were feeling that you didn't even know.
Right.
Something you were carrying and you're like, oh. Okay.
Right. And I think that's another big piece of it too, because if we look at that subconscious aspect of the things that we carry, the thought patterns that we have gone through with different situations, right, that we continue to hang on to, then this bubble journaling helps. It's almost like we're going down to the basement, right? We're digging and we're going to mine for gold in the basement. We're going to chop up some of that ground underneath that basement level because we carry that stuff. Again, here we go. Issues are in our tissues. We hold on to it.
Right. No, for sure we do. For sure we do. And as a parent too, like when you're doing this exercise around something that's completely out of your control, but then it's happening to somebody that you feel responsible to protect and provide for, that's a tricky one.
It's super tricky. But I think for me, when I got to the bottom of it, I realized this, it's my feelings are all about me. She has her own feelings, which realistically I understood,
Sure.
but the subconscious part of being a mom and carrying that part,
Mm-hmm.
knowing that I could not effectively change anything.
Right. And we carry it against our will.
Yeah.
We absolutely do.
Yeah.
We carry it against our will because these are our people. It's
Yeah.
like mama bear syndrome.
Yeah, totally. And acceptance
Mhm.
and allowing acceptance to come in. That's
Mhm.
another, I think the word acceptance and forgiveness kind of go hand in hand.
Mm-hmm. No, for sure. Because you're not like in this situation that was out of your control. Nothing about that was done correctly.
Mhm.
But for your own peace, you have to accept, which you can't change, and then let it go, which is forgiveness. And then ultimately it all worked out.
Yeah. And just knowing that everything is already okay.
Mhm.
Also another fun reel that I saw yesterday was Willie Nelson.
Oh.
It was was it not on yours? It was on my friend Regina's. Willie Nelson was talking about worry. And he was talking about how he chose not to worry anymore because he's like, it just makes things, I've never seen worrying make anything different.
Right.
Other than make me not feel good.
Yeah.
And why do I want to not feel good?
Right.
And it was, of
It's
course,
just another word for anxiety. It's just never good.
Yeah.
There's no good fruit that comes from that, from worry.
There's no good fruit that comes from worry.
But there's not.
Yeah.
Not at all.
So why do we worry?
Because we try to control it all. That's what I think. I mean, that's me. I'm like, oh my gosh, and then when I take a minute and say, you know what, I can't control any of this. Why am I so just out of my mind about it?
Yeah.
I can't control it at all.
Yeah.
So then take a minute. Okay.
Yeah.
This doesn't have anything to do with me. Or even if it affects me greatly and I can't do anything about it in the moment, all I'm doing is making myself like sick over something I can't control.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think ultimately, if we want to totally come back to center on why we're doing this year of these different opportunities around our soul goals, these are tools to help us get to that point of we're not in control.
Yeah.
So what can we do?
Man, I hate that
too. I just want to control it all.
Control it all.
Just control it all.
Yes.
Right.
But then I would be like worrying about, am I controlling it right? So then, I mean, I guess it doesn't matter.
Gets you down a whole other rabbit hole, right?
Right.
Totally. But it's getting you to that point of where you can understand that things are out of my control. And when it raises an anxiety inside of me, how can I help to quench and to quell that anxiety? And what can I do to make this better for me? The situation that I have zero control over. So for me, if we're going back to the whole, why are we doing this? The things that we've done, and some of them have been kind of quirky and some fun, but it's about getting you to a lighter hearted space where you can understand that when we are in that place of not having control, this is how we react. This is how we respond. Are we doing this in a way that is conducive to the people, to ourselves, selfless versus selfish? And how is that feeding the people in our relationships around us? And are we being the best version of ourselves that we can be?
Yeah.
Well, if I'm sitting around going, Greta, look at the girl, I can't control it. I can't control it. Just hemming and hawing about it. It's never made me happy. And a great point you brought up, the people around us that love us want us to be happy. They do.
They do. Do you have a tool that you use when you feel it swirling that brings you back down?
Breathing.
Breathing?
Yeah.
Nice.
Breathing and pausing. And I've inked it on my arm, actually.
You do? Yeah.
Pause, breathe, then resume.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. Mine's gratitude.
Okay.
I take a minute. If I'm feeling out of control, I take a minute and just jot down or type in my phone like 1 or 2, 3 gratitudes.
Yeah.
And it's hard to be thankful and just what it's hard to you can't trust and worry all at the same time. So if I'm expressing gratitude, it just kind of brings me back down.
Yeah.
And just like when you're breathing, it just settles everything.
It totally does. And to your point, worry and gratitude don't fit in the same box. Like anywhere close. They can't exist like dynamically simultaneously.
Right. And so that grounds me. Gratitude grounds me a lot.
So then we can talk about choice. Like you make a choice. Yeah. It's hard to make that choice.
It is.
Because then we go back to it's so look at this wheel that we're on. Then we go back to this, I'm out of control.
Right.
Mhm.
Right. But then you can say, if I pause and show gratitude, then my heart settles. I'm more peaceful. I'm in a better place.
Yeah.
If I don't, then you can play those scenarios too. I'm feeling anxious. I'm irritable. I'm snippy. I'm, quick tempered.
Yeah. If then bubbling, bubble journal.
It has changed. I love changed the game for me. I love it. I never knew about this.
Oh, I'm so glad.
When you said years ago, you heard about, you were prompted to do it in therapy years and years ago. I'm like, how have I never heard about this?
Yeah.
So
I feel like it's an older technique, and it may not be something that is utilized a lot, but I know that journaling for me has been helpful in the past. And I know you talk a lot about journaling is a really big thing for you.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
And knowing that, sometimes you don't need to change what's not broken. Right. So it worked for me years ago, and I got away from it. And I'm like, what if I brought that back up? And it can create some angst to start with. I mean, you can create some, we're not wanting to create anxiety, but there's a lot of times you gotta unearth some stuff to be able to move through it,
because worst case scenario, it's still worst case.
Yeah.
So, you go through worst case scenario, and you might come to the conclusion that, oh gosh, I don't even know. I'm not sure I'm ready for that.
Right.
It couldn't be, it might not be this release of, oh, everything's going to be fine. It could be, wow, everything might not be fine.
Right.
But at least I'm preparing myself.
That was me with my other one around my work. It wasn't something like it almost like it stopped me and went, okay, because I have some outside extenuating work stuff that I'm doing, some side hustle things outside of the podcast.
Yeah.
And they're a little bit scary, a little bit daunting for me at my age, but I'm like, hey, whatever it is, it is. And it helped me get to a point where at the end of that bubble journal for me, I went, okay, it's not appropriate for me to move forward just yet. I need to kind of hold this here, and I need to do a little bit more research and a little bit more elbow work. So it taught me something, just like exactly what you said. That's really great. Yeah. It gave me a piece of information about how I move through this world and how I move through that scenario, so to speak. So instead of just ultimately jumping in, with no thought, no preface about it, the bubble journal for me on that occasion was, let's go through the steps. What is it that we need to know about this? If this happens, then this happens. So it was very grounding and realistic for me. Yeah. It was a reality checkup for me.
Yeah. And jumping into where you're supposed to jump in, and not just jumping in like willy-nilly, you can take your steps that you need to do. And that's exciting.
Totally.
You still get to do the things you're, kind of a dream that's been plopped inside of you, but now you just kind of have some steps.
Right.
Rather than just like,
it's all out there.
Yeah. And then you're grabbing it going, what do we do? What do we do?
So, exactly. Yeah. What was another one for you, bubble journal, that you did?
It had to do with some things with, I guess, kind of a little bit of a side hustle. I don't really know, but I do have this dream, and something I've been going back and forth with the whole time. And I was like, well, if I embark on this, then whatever. And I went through all the things, but then just came to the realization that most of my angst and my holdback is what other people think. Oh, what are other people going to think? What are people going to say? What are they going to do?
Right.
And then I thought, if that's the worst thing, then why not just chase something that I think will be worthwhile and fun and can help somebody, maybe.
Yeah.
Or help one. That'd be fine with me.
Helping one is really effectively what we're here to do. Just give a little bit. What others think? Can we unpack that one?
I know, right? Because we all say, I don't care what other people think. Yes, you do.
Totally care. I totally care.
Right?
I'm lying if I say I'm not. Right. I will say there are different subjects that I don't care as much about.
Right.
But interestingly, I found as I've aged that there are certain things that I go, wow, that bothered me 10 years ago. And that doesn't bother me now. And that's just life and time, I guess.
Yeah. Right. Miles.
And that's the miles on the mechanism.
Miles, man.
Yes.
Yes. I think everybody, to some degree, we all care what somebody thinks.
Yeah.
But
do you think that's important?
Well, yes, because I've thought about this. Why is it such a big deal And why, if everybody, if it wasn't a big deal, then nobody would talk about it. But people are always putting, you know, things on the, on Instagram or Facebook or whatever that says, you know, I used to care about people's opinions until I learned that their opinions didn't pay my bills, or well, you can find all these little quotes, which means people care about what people think.
Yes.
And I do. Everybody wants to be liked.
Right.
Because we're created to live in community.
Right.
I don't think we were ever created to be like on an island out by ourselves. We're created to be in community. I don't think you live in community and don't have this angst, this back and forth where, I mean, there are things that I'm like, I'm going to do this and this is who I am and you can take me or leave me.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
And that's okay. You can do that and still, you know, be concerned. I don't know. It's just kind of a real, like, what if I do this? What are people going to think? And then you have to get back to, well, if it's important to you, then it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And it's like that old, was it Dr. Seuss, that the people that matter don't mind and the people that mind don't matter?
I think it is.
Was that Dr. Seuss?
Yeah, I think you're right.
And I think that's where you have to decide. The people that matter, that don't mind you growing and learning and chasing, and they're going to accept you.
Yeah.
And the people that are just going to judge you, the people that mind, well, they don't matter.
Right.
Dr. Seuss.
Dr. Seuss, who would have thunk it?
Drop in there.
I love it.
Yeah.
Dr. Seuss was he was a one. Yeah.
I know, right? It's little nuggets of truth, but you know, so I'm not sure why that is always a thing. It was a thing when I was in middle school, and it's a thing, and I'm 54. So I think it changes its power. Its power diminishes, but you still have to think through. We still have to think through it.
Right.
We decide whether to give that power or not.
Right. And I think there's a level of care and respect that goes along with that too for other people, because you can't be like, screw everybody.
Right.
Like, I'm going to do what I'm going to do, and I don't care how it affects everybody.
Right.
Like, because there's a moral high ground that I think you have to be concerned about. And as a human being that wants to create connection, part of that is finding and showing that respect for other individuals around you. So it's that level of where it's a slippery slope. It's where it crosses, where you step over into the gunk of giving too much of your power away and how you care about what other people think.
Yeah. And when people say, when you just said, people say, I am who I am, it's just, well, if it bothers you.
Yeah.
I had a friend, and I use this in parenting too. And every once in a while, but when people say, I just can't help it, that's not true. Nobody suffers from the can't help it. Because you always have a choice.
Yeah.
And so anytime my kid, sorry, Mom, I couldn't help it. Yes, you can help it.
Oh,
you get to decide what you say and what you do.
Yes.
And I had a friend that said that to somebody one time when they were like, I just couldn't help it. And he said, well, yeah, you can. You're deciding what you're doing and not doing. Nobody suffers from the can't help it.
That's amazing.
And I just grabbed that. I was like, oh, I'm going to be taking that in my life. I'm going to be taking that and using that for the rest of my life. And I've said that at work before when a teenager's going, I'm sorry, Miss Dixie, I just can't help it. No, that's not true. You can't help it.
What do they say? Do they just look at you?
They get that look like, no, yes, you can.
I'm using that with my teenager
this
week, because inevitably it's going to like we're going to argue. And inevitably something's going to happen. And it's going to be, we're going to help it.
Sorry. Yeah.
No.
Nobody
suffers from the can't help it.
That's right.
Dixie, that's amazing.
Yeah, I'll apologize to her later.
She's going to love that. But you know what? I think there's a real piece of ownership that we can take when we understand that about ourselves.
Yeah.
Because it's almost coming from that helplessness is almost like it's a place of lack. And none of us are completely helpless. And if I'm talking about our mental capacity in terms of choosing how we interact with other people.
Right. You're exactly right.
Yeah.
I had a thought about can't help it, and it just left me. Because when you say I can't help it, you're assuming that you're powerless over something.
Yeah.
And that's just not the truth.
Correct.
It's just not the case.
Correct. Yeah.
So not suffering from the can't help it is actually a powerful place to be.
Amen.
Because you get to decide.
Always. Oh, such a good teaching moment there,
Right?
Dixie. So good.
I wish I could take the can't help it for myself too, but I can't. I took that from
know.
somebody.
But it's a good one.
That's what life's all about. We take little nuggets of truth along the way.
Yeah, it's connecting and finding out what works for us and what doesn't work for us. That's why we're doing this podcast. What works for you? Maybe the bubble journaling doesn't work for you, but maybe the suffering from that can't help it piece is a light bulb that goes off in your brain.
Or forgiveness.
Or acceptance.
Maybe
Yeah.
A lot of stuff.
I love it.
Every week. Back when we listen to this, wow, I listen to this one back and process some more probably. So.
Totally.
Yeah.
I've been doing that.
Yeah, me too.
I love it.
I love it.
Okay. Is there any other ones you want to share?
No, I'm good. I think I got it all out.
I'm laughing because I'm like, yeah, I'm done. I'm done processing for today. We've been doing this for about 35 minutes.
I think we're good.
Therapy session is coming to a close. And with
That's
that, that's our time today with your session. Right.
There you go. There you go.
Well, I think it's always an endearing situation to learn more about yourself. And I say that kind of tongue in cheek because it's about loving yourself enough to do the work for yourself.
Absolutely.
You know?
Absolutely.
And knowing that you're worthy of it and knowing that it's okay to feel that worthiness and it's okay to do that work and it's okay to be okay.
Oh, right. Of course.
Totally.
Yep. Yeah. If you're breathing, you're worthy.
Amen.
Absolutely.
All right, kids. Until next week, I'm Dawn.
I'm Dixie.
We'll see you again.